Welcome to the S/4HANA Cloud Extended Edition Sales Authorization Enablement. In this course, we'll be taking a look at the implementation of SAP S/4HANA Cloud Extended Edition with SAP Activate. Let's first take a look at the learning objectives for this course. We will provide an introduction to SAP Activate and this approach and the mind shift towards cloud implementations of S/4HANA. We will illustrate a day in the life with SAP Activate. The SAP Activate methodology for SAP S/4HANA Cloud guides customers into a cloud transformation. It's available for all SAP S/4HANA Cloud deployment options, including S/4HANA Cloud Extended Edition. Here in this section, we'll provide a guidance for partners in using the SAP Activate methodology. Next, we will explain what are the 5 golden rules for SAP S/4HANA Cloud so that you as an implementation services provider or VAR who's also providing services in the implementation of SAP S/4HANA Cloud Extended Edition, you can follow these as you implement the solution with your customers.
Hello, my name is Lisa Couch, and what we are going to cover in today's session is the implementation of SAP S/4HANA Cloud Extended Edition with SAP Activate. As this session is geared to an audience of people who are both new to SAP as well as experienced SAP Activate users and SAP Activate experts, we will have an agenda that is prepared to give first a short introduction to SAP Activate, as well as a day in the life with SAP Activate. We will then focus on the 5 golden rules and then a summary. We first introduced Activate in May of 2015. There was a launch at Activate at Sapphire along with SAP S/4HANA Cloud launching products for both cloud and on-premise. It has been designed from the ground up to use modern technology that can help our customers deploy their business environment. Because the way we wanted to change the way our implementations are done, we wanted to focus on transitioning from traditional order taking, like long blueprinting sessions, resulting in highly customized systems that should open up the cloud mindset. Activate introduced the ability to use best practices, model company, and the best practices from partners as a starting point so that customers can start with something standard rather than starting with an empty system. The second key difference is that we took a step on implementing Agile within these projects, and you can see the different variants as they collaborate Agile framework throughout the customer maturity and deployments. What you will see in the public cloud is a more Agile structured approach with short iterations, frequent deployment into the next system. Specifically, in Extended, we are bunching up the configuration and adjustments to the systems. Lastly, we have expanded the perspective guidance across all phases. When you compare the previous methodologies, you will find a lot more details inside Activate. With Activate itself, people tend to fixate on the methodology. But it's not only about the methodology. It is a combination of 3 things to help customers deploy the solution in the cloud. This is important to remember because the methodology by itself will help you move a little bit faster. But the differentiator is the business processes delivered ready to run. These are the start of the implementation and help the customers adopt the standard business processes for non-differentiated practices very quickly, while they focus on the different practices and value-added business processes that they have in the customer's environment. This is the mindset that we are going with this approach. We talk about the guidance and the descriptiveness of it, but lastly, we want to focus on the set of applications that help with the adoption and extensibility. We are talking about using Extended as the implementation guide, IMG configuration, extensibility guide, set of open APIs for adoption, and using SAP Solution Manager for documentation and managing testing inside of the project. These are some of the tools available in SAP Activate Extended Edition today. What we are aiming for with Activate is to help customers innovate faster, see what they can achieve faster in the product, especially with the cloud timeline as these are much shorter. The first step is getting the project to go live, and then when it comes to upgrading, this is where we have the strength to help customers bring new functionality into that business. This will result in greater productivity overall. We have designed Activated to be scaled up and down based on the size complexity of the customer and the project. It has been proven by companies that have adopted Activate like Mod Pizza and Hershey. All of this has been used to help our customers reach positive impact within the organization. Before we go on to the next section, let's first summarize the 3 key things that help customers drive successful deployments. We have the ready-to-run processes that you will find in SAP best practices, as well as the use of model company. The second key component is the use of the SAP Activate methodology that you will find in the roadmap viewer. This gives you prescriptive step-by-step deployment guidance for project teams, with specific details regarding activities such as fit to standard. The decisions made throughout the roadmap should then be highlighted as well as recorded in a tool such as SAP Solution Manager or any other tool within the S/4HANA application that can help capture the key decisions that the customers are making along the implementation journey. We want to make sure that we capture the key design decisions so that way, moving forward, we will be able to keep track of what changes have been made that will make for an easier upgrade. The next agenda item is going through the day in the life of SAP Activate throughout the project lifecycle. The scenario we are looking at is the SAP Activate methodology, which will help guide the customers into their cloud transformation. The methodology is available for all cloud deployment options. The primary difference between Extended is that it is a hybrid of both the Essentials as well as the on-premise. So you're getting the best of both worlds. In terms of what we offer throughout all the SAP Activity methodologies, we will continue to do scoping with fit to standard, as well as the use of the business-driven configuration questions. The questions can be used for both Essentials, Extended, and on-premise, depending on the way the questions are filtered. We provide templates and guidance to help with the extensions and integration throughout the project. We also offer a structured quality approach with clear sign-offs so that you can ensure transparency and risk management. For Extended, we have specific questions in the quality reviews, as well as questions that pertain to the 5 golden rules. So throughout the life cycle of each phase, you do have the option of going through the quality review to ensure that you've covered all aspects of the project. As mentioned earlier, we use SAP best practices in conjunction with fit to standard, as well as the option of using model company. In Extended today, we will continue to use SAP Solution Manager, which will be very useful to note down any deviations from standard and which will be helpful during the upgrade process long term. It is an easy to use process with work streams and phases that is published in the roadmap viewer today. The first phase that we are going to look at is the Discover phase. We do strategic planning and transitioning to ensure that the Extended is the right approach for the customers. We use the SAP Digital Discovery to generate a scoping report that can be used to help the customers get a better feel of what is available and what they can continue to use within the SAP standard product. We have access to the SAP Cloud Trial Systems, which is a fully activated business process with sample data and organizational structures. In addition, there are tours within the trial that the customers can use to get a better feel of what SAP offers. In the Prepare phase, we are looking at organizing the project governances and standards. Within the methodology, we offer templates that are based off of PMI standards as well as the Agile approach. During Prepare is where we want to ramp up and prepare the project team. We also want to set up expectations with the business owners. This is also where customers will start to have access to their exploration systems, as well as starting to set up the fit to standards so that they can do a complete fit to standard review based upon either best practices or model company. The next phase is the Explore phase. In Explore is where you will go through the fit to standard workshops. During the workshops, you want to capture any requirements that come up during discussions and review of the standard system. Specifically, we want to capture Delta requirements that are linked to extensions, integrations, reports, and outputs. As previously mentioned, we have the business-driven configuration questionnaires that will help guide the customers throughout the fit to standard process. We would highly recommend using Solution Manager to check the statuses or decisions, open requisitions, as well as the process itself. We also provide in the roadmap a backlog template to capture any questions that come up during the Fit to Standard workshop. And at the end, we want to make sure that all Delta requirements are handed over to the specialists, so that way they can plan out their sprints accordingly and evaluate options whenever needed. As the Fit to Standard is a key component in the SAP Activate roadmap, we are going to go into a little more detail. One of the most important parts of this process is the business-driven configuration questionnaire. These questionnaires help identify key values and if any Delta requirements exist early on in the process. The first step is to review the SAP best practice content and process flows. As the customers are first answering their business-driven configuration questionnaires, they can use the best practice content and process flows to get a better understanding of what is offered standard through SAP today. Next, the configuration experts will use either the sandbox or exploration system to configure and review and highlight areas that require configuration decisions. One of the key parts of this is for the configuration experts to use sample data from the customer so that way the customers are familiar as they're going through the process. During the Fit to Standard workshops themselves, the team will discuss any business processes as well as to determine if the solution requires any adjustments to meet these requirements. If any adjustments are required, the team will catalog any Delta requirements in either SAP Solution Manager or another backlog tool for further analysis and sign-off. As mentioned previously, we highly recommend the use of SAP Solution Manager, as this will be the most standard way to track and record any requirements. We also want to highlight that we want to record any Delta requirements related to configuration, integration, or extensibility in either SAP Solution Manager or the backlog tool. The final step in this process is to enable the customers to execute the processes themselves in either the sandbox system or the exploration system, so that way they can become familiar with the solution. The realize phase is where the majority of the work related to scope, configuration, migration, integration, test functionality, as well as extending the solution for the customers will occur. Based upon the outcomes of the Fit to Standard workshops, the project team will have a better idea of what the customer requirements are in terms of scoping and system provisioning. Within the roadmap viewer, we offer the implementation guides, which will help walk the customers through the best ways to configure as well as activate their systems. For extended, we recommend the on-premise guide, as this will help the customers through their detailed requirements as well as the activation of the solution. The SAP Migration Cockpit will also assist in conducting the migration as well as keeping track of the migration status. And as always, we offer SAP best practices to help set up the standardized integrations. As mentioned previously, we highly recommend the use of Solution Manager to help facilitate with the testing, but we also offer the option of using a third-party qualified tool. The use of SAP Solution Manager will help you with the reporting and analysis of extended testings as well as controlling the transports. We do have the option of using a side-by-side extensions as well as the SAP Extension Explorer to provide sample coding and extensibility, such as the SAP Business Hub. Within the realize phase, we will use the Agile approach. As the project lead, you want to introduce the Agile approach early on. This means ensuring the team is properly trained and familiarized with the Agile processes. You want to make sure that the team is focused on the first priority of the backlog, as well as prioritize the remaining items accordingly. This is initiated throughout the cycle, starting in the Fit to Standard. Throughout the life cycle, we want to ensure that the project is running structured reviews so that the business aware is what is being implemented into the system. The diagram on the right will show the release schedule. Our recommendation is to start out with the foundation sprints. Previously, we used to call these Sprint 0, but this is where we would initially do the review, prioritize the backlogs, and focus on what is needed to be done first in order to make the deadline. Within sprints 1 and 2, we want to ensure that we do have a firm up sprint where everybody coordinates together to make sure everybody is on board as the processes flow through. And at the very end, we want to ensure that we have successful integration tests to make sure everything is configured and working properly. And then lastly, you would like to make sure that you have the end users sign off accordingly, as well as frequently. This gives a better picture of the overall Agile sprint. The key here is to always make sure that you're doing the proper integration with demos to the customers frequently, so that way you can ensure their proper sign-off. You would also want to make sure that you have weekly stand-up meetings with all your team members accordingly, so that way they can update you on their progress, as well as other team members. This diagram gives a little more detail in terms of the sprint planning and integration. Within the sprint plan, you want to make sure that you design, build, test, and document your requirements accordingly. Each sprint is estimated to last between 2 to 4 weeks. At the end, you want to make sure that you do a sprint demo in order to ensure that you have captured all of the customer's requirements and to capture any deltas that might come up accordingly. After all the configuration is done in the realize phase, we will now move towards the deploy phase. Within the deploy phase, we want to ensure that we have an effective transport process available to the customer to support their transport management system. This will ensure that everything is properly moved into production. Within SAP Activate, we provide onboarding content as well as links to the learning applications that will help with the role-based learning content. We've also embedded the help links shown in the application itself to assist the customers in knowing where to go in case they need further assistance. Lastly, the run phase is where you would like to run the solution directly in the production system. This is also when you would extend the solution to include any new countries, as well as configure any additional functionality. You want to ensure that you review any upcoming innovations, as well as any legal changes that might have arisen since the start of the project. You also want to leverage the automated for regression testing with SAP Solution Manager, as well as to enable any new users and upskill any current users. And the most important is also to stay up to date on the SAP Cloud Trust Center topics, as this is where the customers can check the status of their solution. The next area that we will look at is the 5 golden rules for SAP S/4HANA Cloud. With the golden rules for implementation of SAP S/4HANA Cloud, we want to help the customers think with a cloud-like mindset, as well as ensure that their upgrades are as smoothly as possible. The majority difference between Essentials and Extended is Extended gives much more flexibility to the customers. However, sometimes the customers go too far, which makes it hard for them to transition. This is why we established the golden rules. These principles can also be applied to the on-premise implementations as well. In the cloud, we want to start enforcing these rules throughout the use of tools and applications, but remain flexible. The first rule is to foster a cloud mindset, as well as the use of fit to standard and agile deployment as detailed in SAP Activate. Customers are not limited to use of the model company, but they can also go beyond, but as well as they should ensure that they adhere to the standard software capacities rather than using custom code. In terms of the use of Agile, teams that are using Agile are achieving the results faster. Teams using Agile think in shorter iterations, as well as get their functionality in the hands of the business users sooner. Getting the customers up and running in a matter of months rather than years is a goal. The second golden rule is to use pre-configured solutions with predefined processes and to leverage the use of SAP Fiori UX. We're not limiting this to only SAP packages. These packages need to comply with other rules, such as the extensibility rules. But we want to ensure that they stay with the best practices, model company, or qualified partner practice as closely as possible. Modern integration technology. Only some of these can be used, and we prefer customers to use the public APIs or whitelisted APIs. APIs that are documented are on the API hub. Otherwise, customers do not have access to software being run in the SAP data center, and a lot of them are not accessible. This also applies to extensibility. We prefer the side-by-side extensibility. Custom code in the application should be avoided. Custom code can be done inside the system, but they should not be done to have core modifications. If everything else fails, document it. If you cannot avoid custom code, document why you're doing what you're doing, as well as what is being done. When an upgrade is happening, customers are responsible for testing their own custom code and understanding how everything works. These are the highlights of the golden rules. We'll go into more detail throughout the project in terms of what the golden rules imply. Golden rules 1 and 2, cloud mindset and use of pre-configuration and SAP Fiori go hand in hand. We highly encourage the use of SAP best practices and SAP Fiori to help foster the cloud mindset. Once customers go through discovery, they sign the subscription contract with SAP and then go into the prepare phase. They prepare for the fit to standard. With the preparation of fit to standard, the documentation of both SAP and partner documentation are used to help with the fit to standard workshops. We also have available the business-driven questionnaires, which will help prepare the system. The project team will help prepare any key processes as well as the system for a show and tell. One of the foundations for the Fit to Standard is to show the system live. When you show the system live, you get pre-configured data for the show and tell. The data is designed for the manufacturing company as an example. It is recommended to go through the steps before the Fit to Standard workshop starts so that it makes sense to the customer as they're going through the process. The second big use of Rule 1 and 2 is the Fit to Standard workshops themselves. We're going to show and tell involving business configuration Level 2 and Level 3 questions. Level 2 is for prepare, Level 3 is for explore, and they cannot be answered too early in the project. Some questions are too detailed and should be waited until later on in the project to be answered. The only other thing to go through the process is to go through the business flows. We recommend using Solution Manager and Extended. You can view and adjust as needed. We want to document key business decisions and confirm the scope. We also want to ensure that the business understands the processes properly. They may make changes in the scoping decisions, and this is fine, as well as it is properly documented. We are building backlogs so that we want a list of all configuration that needs to be done, as well as all the enhancements that need to be completed to ensure a successful implementation. There is a planning and design that we transition into for integration, extensibility, and output management. Other areas are to identify and access management. Before we close, we need to do release planning as well as the theme planning and sprint planning. This is all working towards the same deadlines and demo in each sprint. This is what we will find in rules 1 and 2. The third golden rule is to ensure cloud-like integration. In terms of integration, the process is defined at the bottom. We do have a more traditional approach. Customers can use pre-delivered integration that SAP ships. Cloud mindset really separates the custom code from the core application. We are collecting requirements, which is an output from Fit to Standard workshops. Avoid extending standard integration. Custom-driven integration is the best, or the integration that SAP delivers. We have a setup where we are documenting and designing custom-driven integrations. There's a lot being done to document the business side of the integrations as well as the technical side. The fourth golden rule is to ensure cloud-like extensions. If you have a requirement that cannot be fulfilled by standard functionality, then there is a need for an extension. One solution is to use OpenAPI. There is an Extensibility Explorer that both partners and customers can use. SAP is sharing their custom code for extensions inside the Explorer. The team needs to design how they're designing an extension as well as spec out what needs to be done. There are specifications inside SAP Activate. Our aim is to minimize extensions. We want to look at the value of an extension and see how it can be done a different way. We use the Explorer and the SAP App Center to see what extensions exist outside of the box. Details are being collected on how the extension should be used on the business side as well as the technical side. We then go into the process of documenting extensions and how they're going to be built. We continue to expand this in SAP Activate along with all the other changes that are being done in the other roadmaps. There are a lot of parallels between the essentials and extended in terms of extensibility. We are now entering the final phase of the presentation, the summary. In the summary, we will recap what we have learned today, as well as provide links and access to any key jam sites, as well as documentation that you'll find useful. In summary, one of the most important things to adhere to are the golden rules for implementing S/4HANA with the cloud mindset. The document that is provided in the main page of the SAP Activate for Extended Edition Roadmap provides details about each of the slides that we went through today. Customers that adhere to the golden rules have the following benefits: the faster time to value, a lower cost of initial deployment and ongoing cost of running the solution, the ability to absorb innovation delivered by SAP at a faster rate, as well as a lower risk for deployment of the system. You also have the higher flexibility and lower reliance on one system, as well as the future-proof solution utilizing modern technologies. And if you ensure the transparency on the deviations, this will help with your upgrades in the long term go smoother and quicker. The diagram shows an overview of what the deployment with the SAP S/4HANA Cloud Extended Edition utilizing SAP Activate looks like. You would go through the roadmap cycles, starting with the different phases, which are a key part of the roadmap methodology. As you move into Realize, with the migration, integration, testing, and extensibility, you finalize it and move into Deploy, and then into production, where you would run the solution directly. With the Extended Edition today, it is a 3-tier landscape system, starting with the exploration system, where you would import your best practices or model company, depending on the approach the customer uses. The customer will also have a quality and production system, with the option of purchasing an additional sandbox system, or if the customer is required or purchases model company, the sandbox system will come automatically. We are offering trainings today for SAP Activate methodology. The first we're offering is the ACT 100, which is a 2-day classroom or e-learning course. This can be found in the solution maps. ACT 200 is an agile delivery course that is offered as a classroom course today. We would also recommend the SAP Solution Manager 7.2 training, as this will give an overview of what is required for the usage of Solution Manager. There is also a certification exam for those who take any of these courses, so that way they can get certified in SAP Activate. All of these courses are also registered with PMI for PDUs, for those who are interested. Lastly, we want to give you access to the SAP Activate tools and community. The first is the SAP Activate Jam community. We are a very active Jam community and have built out a community of practice. The community of practice are experts that you can engage with directly, as well as ask questions and collaborate. In order to get access to the SAP Jam, you will need to request access through this bit.ly. Next is the SAP Roadmap Viewer. As mentioned previously, we have a prescriptive guidance on the Roadmap Viewer in terms of accessing the SAP Activate methodology, assets, and accelerators. The link is here. You can also access all the other SAP Activate methodologies for other solutions as well. And lastly, we have the Best Practice Explorer, where you could review and power your project with ready-to-run processes. Thank you again for your time today. Please find the contact information for Jan Musel and myself if you have any further questions or would like any clarifications on anything that was shown today.